worship. Woo! Come on, love you. Thanks, guys. Good morning. Good morning. I trust we've all found seats. Don't worry, it's Mother's Day. It's fine. It's no problem. It's Mother's Day. I just wanted to set the tone this morning. We got something different this morning lined up. We got a panel discussion happening, and so that's going to be so cool just to hear a few other voices on the platform. Now, before I carry on, I just want to acknowledge who's in the room. We are there. We're going to acknowledge who's in the room. We have mothers in the room. We have mothers who in a sense have mothered other people. They don't have their own kids, but they have been able to be mother figures to others. There are some of us who long to be mothers, who maybe you just have never been able to have your own kids, and this morning we are speaking to you today. We even acknowledge that for some of us, maybe we don't have a great mother figure that we look up to. Maybe your relationship with your mother is not in a great space. Maybe there's sadness in the home when it comes to Mother's Day. Maybe you have lost your mom. And we just want to acknowledge that in all those categories, like God is here for you. That even as we continue this morning, we wanted to celebrate mothers, but also we want to acknowledge those who find themselves in places that potentially don't equally exaggerate or express a celebration. That maybe you're hurting this morning, but we trust that as God moves, that you'll leave grateful for coming out this morning. I'd love to introduce to you my lovely wife, but she can do her own introducing. This is Megs. Give it up for Megs. So good.
Good morning, everyone. For those that don't know us, it's Mark and Megan. And just to give you some family stories, we've got an older son who's going to be 18 next week, actually. And then our other son is 16, and then our daughter is almost 13. So that's our family. I think as parents or as moms, we often want to be perfect parents and raise perfect kids, which is not going to be the case. And I've got numerous stories of they're funny now, but they weren't funny at the time. So I'm going to share one of those stories. It was a beautiful Saturday morning. Our kids were little. And I thought, let's take them to the library. It's so good to take kids to the library and get books. So off we went to the library. I didn't realize Saturdays are the busiest days to take kids to the library. It was a very busy day, and we had chosen some books. We were standing in the queue, and everyone was behaving themselves. And then two of them, I won't mention names, decided it would be a time to play rough and tumble. And it was getting a little bit out of control, so I couldn't quite discipline them, but I could squeeze a shoulder, which I did a little bit too hard because then the one fell on the floor, and then it was just becoming worse than I had anticipated. And while I was trying to sort them out, I turned around, and the other, littlest one, had most of her clothes off. So I had lost complete control of the situation. And, when we go out in public, we want our kids to behave and do what they're meant to do. But honestly, that's not always what happens. And mothering we're not always going to get it right. So that's just one of the stories.
Moments of strength and moments of weakness don't define you as a mom. I think sometimes we feel like we have to be strong all the time. And then when we're weak, we feel like we've messed it up. It's like those little moments are story moments. They're moments to reflect back and go, oh, we messed it up. That's fine. It's no issue. And then there are moments where we're strong and we feel like, hey, we're dominating. We got the best kids. Our kids are amazing. I wish everyone could look at our kids. There will be another season where that changes. But what defines parenting or being a great mom ultimately is realizing that this is a journey. It's a journey of raising kids. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not a one-hit wonder. It's journeys over and over again, cycles, seasons, year after year, different age groups, processing the journey through. And so I think this morning, we want to take the pressure off your moms. I trust that's what you're receiving. And allow God to refresh you again. Deuteronomy 6, verse 6 to 7 says this: "These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts." It's a heartfelt thing. It's not an intellectual thing. It's something that is impressed upon our hearts. Impress them once they're on your hearts upon your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. It's a beautiful scripture that just reminds us that there's a journey to take place. It's on the road, walking together. It's when they go down, praying together, loving upon them. And when they rise up in the morning, celebrating that God's mercies are new every morning.
So we've got a panel of wonderful mothers that are going to share with us this morning, and I just trust that you'll be encouraged. So won't you put your hands together for Tabitha and Fran and Megs to come and join us.
All right. All wisdom has just entered the stage. Good. Let me sit down. So, these are all moms and grandmother, second time around. But while Fran is drinking, that's all I'm doing, just taking some time while you drink that water there, Fran, because you're the first one up. We're going to be interviewing you first.
I woke up, my throat was a bit, there we go.
That is Fran. Fran, why don't you introduce yourself quick?
Yeah, I'm Fran. I'm a grandmother. A grandmother. Yeah, absolutely loving this stage of my life. Yes.
Good. That's so awesome. Are you married by any chance?
Yes, I am to a grandfather who's over there, Lou. You all know Lou, who's up front quite a lot. I'm not normally up front, so this is new for me. And I have got sons and daughters.
Fran, when speaking about the topic, and if you're a Pinterest person, you'll see a lot of bloom where you planted type of language. And so when thinking about bloom where you planted, and just your experience from little babies all the way to being a grandmother, like how do you seize that opportunity to allow there to be a blooming that takes place through all the different seasons of your life?
Well, I am very grateful. I'm extremely grateful. I actually really have a wonderful adult relationship with my sons and daughters. I really enjoy my time with them. And this actually is because I really had to change my parenting. I had to work really hard at healing myself, and I really had to work hard at changing my parenting. I came from parenting which was very punishment-based and very fear-based, and I had to change that to connecting, relational, a lot like that verse, a value of respect, empathy, and unconditional love. I wasn't brought up with unconditional love. Mine was conditional. So I had to really work very hard. So I'm very, very grateful for the work that God has done in my life and how my adult children have that relationship with me, which is very healthy and good, through a lot of hard work.
When you say hard work, like just define hard work, can you give me some examples? Eh?
Well, I think it's really podcasts, it's books, it's, just doing everything in your power to find out a good way to do it. Obviously being led by the Lord. And then trying to treat them all equally now that I'm in this season of my life with Kesley, who is Luke's wife, and Mark, who is Robin's husband, and loving them unconditionally and equally and all the same, that there's no distinction. They are all my sons. I have 2 sons and 3 daughters.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned just around conditions. So like you said, you were raised where love came from a condition point of view, what you achieved, what you did, and all that
performance.
Type of thing.
So this is why this is hard for me. I would have performed perfectly right today.
Yeah. You're performing well this morning. Well done there.
Thank you.
But just on that, like I think, isn't that something of our culture? Do you feel like our culture is impressing on that? There's a performance-based sort of parenting that we inherit just actually by what we see around us.
Totally.
How do you break out of that just in your parenting, like as a mom?
Sure.
We only have a few minutes, so just quickly try and summarize that quickly. All right.
Well, I think it could come later when I explain what I do at school,
That's cool.
which is support parents and support kids at school, and coach them through what I've learned.
Well, why don't you explain that? Go for it. Go straight into it. Yeah, I know that was our next question, but you like going ahead of yourself. Performance, performance. It's fine. Keep going.
Yes. So a lot of connection, a lot of validating your feelings. Your child's feelings are very, very important, and your feelings are very important as well. But you need to connect with your child in a big way, and then after that, redirect and coach and mentor and have a relationship with them. And so in the moment when they're disconnected or dysregulated, it is really your job to regulate them, to hold them in a safe place, to tell them you love them, and then to correct them when you're walking with them, when you're putting them to sleep, when other times. Yeah, and also pray for them without ceasing.
So that comes from, what is your expertise? Why don't you share a bit of what you do? Just people might think, wow, this mom, she's amazing. She knows all this stuff. Like,
No, I support children at a local school, and I support parents at a local school. I do have some books that I'd recommend. The Whole Brain Child, amazing. No Drama Discipline, amazing. Absolutely amazing. Those are good books to read, podcasts. And set age-appropriate boundaries. Social media, very, very much age-appropriate boundaries, very firm. Don't give any leeway on the age-appropriate boundaries for those. Good.
Thank you. Megs, do you want to just give us a bit of an intro of your family?
I've got 3 children. We've got Margot sitting in the front here, who is 13. We have a son who's 12. They're born on the same day, but a year apart. And then we have a 10-year-old.
Awesome. Megs, having children a bit later on in life, what would be some of the things or standouts for you that you could encourage moms starting out later?
Yeah, I was 36 when Margot was born. And for me, Margot, I do love you. So whatever I say now, just know that I do love you. But I found having children was a huge challenge. Yeah.
It's okay. Carry on, Megs.
But I still
It's
love you.
okay.
It's okay. It's safe space. I think I always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and then Margot was born, and after 2 weeks, I realized, actually, I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. I loved being at home with her, but I really still wanted to do things outside the home. And so then it needed to be, I had to learn how to juggle this parenting and being the primary caregiver with still having dreams and desires outside the home. So for me, that was quite a challenge. And I think one of the words that just struck me just a couple of weeks ago is actually when my mom phoned me. I love my mom, and I had a very different home. I had a home that was unconditional love. My mom is incredible, and I long to be like my mom, and I almost feel like I can't be like my mom, but I'm hoping if I can be a mom just like my mom, then I will be thrilled. Anyway, but my mom does phone me often, and every day almost, well, actually, multiple times in a day, and so whenever she... And I see my mom's phone calls as interruptions. And suddenly I was struck the other day, actually, no, this is not an interruption. I must stop and I must listen to her and I must give her time. I must honor her. And in the same way, I think I've sometimes felt that my children are interruptions in my life, that they're in my way for what I want to do. And I think I've had to learn, and I'm learning how to embrace them as part of my life, as a blessing and as a gift, as part of my life. But they're not my whole life either. So that juggle between loving them, but also being a woman who has other things that I want to do. So that's one of the key things.
Brilliant.
I've actually got one other key thing.
Go for it.
Linked to this, probably, that I had to learn, and this maybe also sounds strange, like children actually are a blessing and a gift. It's obvious, and they should be, but for me, I had to learn that they are a blessing and they are a gift. And I think one of the ways that they've been a gift to me is I love them and I love spending time with them, but they've also been an incredibly refining part of my life. Because before I had them, and up until 36, I thought I was a fairly calm person. Yeah.
That's where the healing came in.
Yeah, then I realized that I can get extremely angry. I can shout. I even can want to throw things. And so I've had to learn self-control. I've had to learn patience, perseverance. I've had to ask for a lot of forgiveness from my kids. I've had to own my mistakes when I want to kind of brush them under the carpet. I've had to acknowledge that actually the way I've just behaved, it was not okay. It's actually not okay to talk to you like that, and I'm sorry, and it's not, so they've been very gracious to me. Yeah.
It's brilliant, thanks.
Tabitha, your turn. Quickly, intro your family to us, who you are.
Great. Hi, good morning. I am Tabitha. My throat's suddenly gone all funny. I am a mother of 2 young kids. I've got a 6-year-old who's in grade 1, Mason. He's just an absolute joy. And the little rascal out there that's making a noise is my other little one. Also an absolute joy, mostly. Yeah, he's 1.5 years old.
Good, so small kids, eh?
Yeah.
Small kids. Question to you, with just as you're starting out, kids are young, lots happening, it's very busy, trips to the library on Saturday type of experiences. And also you're starting a professional, in a professional career. Like, just explain, how do you manage these two worlds? Like loving your kids, but also knowing that God's gifted you in this area, that you in a career environment, and how do you keep that at bay, in a sense, at equal out, if that makes sense?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think people often use the word, how do you juggle those various areas of your life? And I've had to admit that actually juggling is very hard. And if anyone's ever juggled, you're bound to drop a couple of balls along the way. It's almost impossible. Unless you're some sort of an expert, you probably are not going to be able to juggle those balls. And I think that is what I've had to learn, is, again, talking about seasons. I cannot be everything all the time. And in my case, I love to think we've kind of got a vague theme of plants and, the blooming and the seasons. And I was thinking this week about a tree. So a tree that has blossoms. And in spring, it looks beautiful, and everyone admires that tree, and everyone notices that tree. And then the petals start to fall. And I think as moms, often we feel, maybe for a while, we're in the limelight, people notice us, and then most of the time, we're not noticeable. We are in the room at the back, we are in the trenches doing the thing, doing the work. And I feel like despite those harder seasons, even the autumn when the leaves start to fall, and I feel like we feel like we're constantly giving of ourselves. We're shedding our leaves, and it can be quite depleting at times, but the tree still provides shelter, and the tree still provides shade, and most importantly, oxygen. And I feel like, for me, it's been a realization, and I'm still having to learn this all the time, that there are seasons. And that means, there are going to be things that I'm going to have to say no to. I have a job. It's not that I have pressed pause on my work. But I'm a very entrepreneurial type of person. I have lots of ideas and dreams. And, sometimes I have to just acknowledge that the spring is coming and the blooms, the tree will once more flourish. But in the season where maybe it feels a little bit drier, there's still so much purpose. Yeah.
And how have you said that quite a key word there, the word no. The word no is a hard word.
Yes.
It's something that needs to be used more than not,
exactly.
actually. And so how do you gauge when to say no and when to say yes? Because I think if you are naturally someone who is giving, I think all moms are just giving. I think you've expressed that. When is enough's enough? Like, when do we say no? Like, what has been
Honestly, this is the hardest, this is my biggest challenge in life. Like, I struggle with boundaries. So I love saying yes to everything. And I think that every yes that we say is also a no. Because I'm saying yes to that job over there, or yes to that opportunity, but I'm saying no to spending time with my kids, or I'm saying no to whatever other priority there is. I think at the end of the day, it very much comes down to figuring out the priorities. And I think that needs to be a daily activity. And I definitely am not getting that right most of the time, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a learning process.
Fran, any thoughts on that? Like, no is quite a big thing, you know?
I think just exercising self-care for moms, I think that's huge. I really think that, yeah, you need to take the time out to grow and to heal and to give yourself space and time. Find people to look after your kids. Yeah, and also to spend quality time with each child individually is huge. Let someone else look after the little one while you take the big one out. Dads and moms, we all have family time, but we need one-on-one time with our kids. They really do grow and actually behave better when they come back. So, because their tanks have been filled. Yeah.
So good. And I think you've mentioned for those single moms out there, like I think that can be quite a tricky one, you know, just with regards to, geez, who looks after these kids? You know, I don't just lock the door and leave them, hope for the best. You know, it's just like and I think that, so anyone got just some perspective on that? I know that you're all married, but just some thoughts around to encourage those moms who are single, who are saying, hey, how do I get this right, you know? Don't look at me without any answers, because that doesn't help.
Yeah, I think I can, because I reflected on can I be everything as a mom? And I think as a single mom, it speaks to that as well. I think what I've learned, I think as a mom, you want to be everything, and maybe as a single mom, you even have that pressure more. But a few things. I think in our children's lives, they don't just need a mom. They need a dad or a male figure in their lives. They need friends, auntie,
granny.
Yeah. They need teachers. There's so many different people who speak into children's lives, and for me, that has been such a relief. When otherwise, sometimes as a mom, you feel the pressure that you've got to be everything. And so it's a relief for me to know that I don't have to be everything for my kids.
How did you get to that?
Probably, I'm still getting to that probably, but I'm still learning. But I think a key one was when the children were 1, 2, and 3, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I just had this idea that I was going to die within 2 years. And the only grapple for me at that time, sorry, class, I wasn't worried about class. I've been a
lot of honesty in this panel.
Yeah.
Sorry, class, eh?
I wasn't worried about him being a single dad, but I was really worried about my children growing up without a mom. That for me, I guess that's the mom in me. That was my grapple. And that was my grapple with God. And so I remember one day we were in the Netherlands and I was cycling and I almost felt or sensed or heard God saying to me, don't worry, I love your kids even more than you do. I will take care of them. And for me, that was such a relief. I came home and I still said to God, I know ideally it's better for them to have me around, and I am still around. I didn't die after the 2 years. I'm still around, but it took the pressure off me. And
you could get well.
And I could get well. And I got well. Yeah.
So good. Pressures, I think, as moms, I think in the world that we live in, there is huge pressures. And we've spoken about saying no, we've spoken about time. How do we model godly mothering in our current state of culture? What would your thoughts be? Anyone?
Yeah, I would say that you really have to choose your values and you really have to model them. And I think you don't have to say anything. I think they will just naturally, by osmosis, by modeling, your children will see the values that you have, that you embody, the value of respect, the value of empathy, unconditional love, all of those. And choose an umbrella value that umbrellas your family. And if you choose respect, it pretty much covers everything, doesn't it? Yeah. The way you treat your kids, the way you treat each other in marriage, the way you treat others.
Anyone else?
I can say something. I think in community, just raising our kids together with other people is just so strengthening. Sometimes we plod along on our own, and it's hard to kind of see what we should be doing, but to be partnering with people around us gives us such strength. There have been many times where I've watched other parents, older parents with older kids, and been like, oh, I like that. I'm going to implement that. And so it's in community that it gives us such strength.
So I know we've been speaking about moms, but Fran, you're the only grandmother on this platform here. Just encourage grandmothers. You've been through the whole phase, as I said, small kids and that. Now you're playing a different role. Do you wear a different hat? Like, do you still discipline your kids?
No, just love them, and love them. It's not your job anymore. You've done your job. Love them as much as possible. I do pray without ceasing, though. There's this huge, as a grandmother, this huge what-if monster. What if something terrible happens to these precious little children that you now have? And there's a lot of fear. And so I pray without ceasing. I surrender them to Jesus. I trust him with my whole heart. And then I ask for the peace that passes all understanding, that guards your heart and mind. And we cannot live any other way. I don't know how you live any other way except to completely surrender them. Yeah.
Absolutely. Tabitha, can I just ask you, do you find yourself comparing yourself to other moms and other parenting? And if you do, how would you encourage, maybe you've got an encouraging story about that?
Great. Just taking a moment. I think there are a lot of lies floating around, especially on social media, about what a mother should look like. I think mothers in my generation are very, prone to these lies. That you're told that as a mother, you need to have the perfect home, you need to be great at your career, you need to have perfectly dressed kids in beige and brown. You've got to tick all those boxes, and I think we all know that these are lies. And at the end of the day, no one hits that mark, and we're all imperfect. But I think because it is up in our face all the time, I think it's just natural that we do compare ourselves. And as I've been thinking about this, the last couple of days, I've been thinking a lot about the comparison that I do to other mothers who have chosen to be stay-at-home moms. Like you, I went back to work quite early, and there's always a sense of kind of maybe a little bit of shame or guilt that I have around that. And I've just been reflecting on that and thinking, it is not about as much as I admire and respect, and I think it's so wonderful if you can be at home with your kids, at the end of the day, it is, not about the quantity of the time, but the quality of the time. And, the time that we're given, whether that's the full day or whether it's 2 hours, in the morning and the evening, at the end of the day, how do we stew that time? And I'm so grateful that I've had such an amazing example with both of, my mother and my mother-in-law, because both the examples, that have been set for us, it's such an incredible inheritance of mothers who steward their time so well. And both of them, there's not a day where you will not find them surrendering their day to God. And, they've prayed for us. And what a gift that is to be able to say, both mothers on both sides have prayed for us, all children. And that is such a gift that I would love to be able to pass on to my own kids as well. It's incredibly inspiring, and my mom is right over there. so it's amazing. Thank you.
There's a quote that stands out for me that Theodore Roosevelt said, is that comparison is the thief of all joy. And I think if we get caught up with comparison, that we can't joyfully parent, we can't joyfully mother our kids. And there's such freedom in that. Yeah.
So I want to go from, I'll start with you, Megs, and then we'll go around. Just one parting thought. What is the yes? If people are to leave with a yes in their hearts, like yes to what? in the mothering of their kids and their position of mothers. How do we encourage women to leave here saying, actually, I'm going to say yes to this one thing?
I think the thing that immediately comes to mind, the yes, is this yes to Jesus, yes to calling out to Jesus. That was the one, when I got a congratulations card when Margot was born, the friend in it wrote, when you struggle, call out to Jesus. And so for me, and then linked, so is as I struggle in my mothering or in my parenting or my caregiving, is to cry out to Jesus and say help. Yeah.
That's so good. Fran?
Knowing how your child receives love. I've realized that that is huge. I spoke to a child whose grandfather used to see her every day and bring her gifts. And she said to me, he loves me. I know my grandfather loves me, but my mother doesn't love me. So I said, so what does your mom do? Does she give you gifts? No, she just wants to hug me all the time. And I hate hugs. And so her love language is not touch. Her love language is gifts. And with my children, my son's love language was acts of service. And if I went and got his watch fixed, oh my goodness, I was just the best mother ever. And with my one daughter, if I just filled up her touch tank. Her tank was full. Her emotional tank was full. Everything was full. So I think that is quite a big key. I know in marriages as well, but also with raising kids. Yeah.
Okay, putting us on the spot here. I think it kind of touches on what I said earlier. I'm hugely challenged to yield to God in the beginning of the day, to kind of start the day. And I think, as a parent of young kids, it's a very physical and immediate need all the time. And it's very quick, it's very easy to kind of just get swept away by the motions. And, you're doing those everyday things. You're getting in the feeding, the bathing, the whatever, the runs to the school. Thankfully, my husband does a lot of that. But, it can get very caught up in that. And even, when it comes to coming to church, that maybe we're running around at the back and we may be missing the sermon most of the time. But I think the thing I'm saying yes to, or the thing I wish to say yes to, this is obviously something that I have to practice and get better at, is to start the day surrendering my kids and my life, essentially, to God and saying, what do you want? What do you want me to say yes to? And what do you want me to say no to?
That's brilliant. I think for me, love is spelled Time, spending time, and I know that's one of the love languages as well, but just taking the time to figure out how our kids feel loved. But I think we can get just so caught up in the busyness of life that we kind of steamroll over our kids, and so just taking the time to listen, because sometimes I've had a moment where I was like, I heard the jabbering and I'll say yes, and then I heard, really, Mom? I'm like, what did you just say? And so to really listen properly, not just hear in the one ear and out the other. So time.
I just said even this morning, there's been a strengthening. I think often in different people's experiences, different people's lives, we get to learn if we're attentive. And I like how our friend started, was like, I used to do it this way, and I had to learn how to do it a different way. Many of us have been raised differently, different cultures, different backgrounds, different experiences. Some of us can celebrate, others would in a sense, push it one side and say, I don't want to relive my childhood. But the reality is that it's like there's been investments into our hearts and into our minds, into our thoughts, and how we do stuff is in a sense from history that we've seen and experienced and we've walked through. And I think something of the importance here is we have to choose to say yes. We have to choose to leave this morning by saying yes to whatever it is that God has stirred in your heart this morning. But yes isn't just an emotional thing. It's something of, as Fran said, there's a discipline around changing practice. It's a discipline about opening hearts and opening minds to learn a different way. And I trust even as we have celebrated this morning that you've been strengthened as moms. You've been strengthened in this role of mothering just through other people's experiences. Thank you for the incredible contributions. I think it's always good to hear other people's experiences and what they have succeeded in, and maybe where they haven't. I think, Megs, you've been very honest. So we'll pray for Klaus and Margot afterwards. So I'd like to just call the worship team up as we come to an end. But before we worship together, Psalm 28, verse 7, it says, "The Lord is my strength and shield." The Lord is. Not my background, not my social status, not my career, not my abilities, my gifting, not the family that I was born into. No. The Lord is my strength and He's my shield. And so even as we walk along this journey of parenting, mothering, there's such an important understanding that God is our strength in the seasons of weakness. That He's the one who gives us the strength that we need. And even as Tabitha said, as we start out the morning, just dedicating our kids, dedicating our lives to the King and His kingdom, and realizing that there's a strength that we can lean into. And more than that, there's a shielding effect. I'm sure, as Fran said, just around praying for grandkids and just trusting that nothing bad happens. Well, there's something beautiful about this, that the Lord is my strength, but also my shield. That even as I declare His shielding on their lives, that actually we can trust God in those times. And then it carries on. It says, "I trust Him with all my heart." I love the vulnerability, even this morning. Just to say, actually, we've made some mess-ups. We've had some library experiences. But yet we still trust Him with all our hearts, that He will lead us and guide us. It carries on. It says, "He helps me, and my heart is filled with joy." Man, let joy arise in homes across this neighborhood, in this city today. And then it carries on. It says, "I burst out into songs of thanksgiving." Let singing arise in our hearts. Let singing arise in our lives as we constantly are reminded of the strength of God in our times of weaknesses and the shielding that He shields us of the adversary as the enemy may come to try and pick us out. But let's just appreciate these three wonderful ladies for their contribution this morning. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
You know,